The wedding secret that changed everything. Join me as I dive into the unexpected drama and secrets that unfolded at my family wedding. It was supposed to be a beautiful day, filled with love, laughter, and family bonding. My cousin Marcus was getting married to his longtime girlfriend, Sarah, and we were all excited to celebrate this new chapter in their lives. The venue was stunning. A historic mansion nestled in the countryside with sprawling gardens and a grand ballroom that looked like something out of a fairy tale. The food was amazing, catered by the most exclusive restaurant in town, and everyone was dressed to impress. My grandmother wore her signature pearls, my father actually put on a suit without complaining, and even my teenage brother managed to look presentable for once. But little did we know, this wedding was about to take an unexpected turn that would shake our family to its core. Family gatherings can be a bit complicated, right? You've got different personalities, opinions, and sometimes unresolved issues that simmer just beneath the surface. My family is no exception. We've got our fair share of quirks and tensions. There's Uncle Robert, who never misses an opportunity to lecture everyone about politics. There's Aunt Linda, who's always comparing her children's accomplishments to everyone else's. My grandmother, bless her heart, has strong opinions about everything from how to raise children to what color socks are appropriate for formal occasions. But on a day like this, you try to put all that aside and just enjoy the celebration. The thing is, there's always that one person or that one topic that can stir up a lot of emotions. And in our case, it was about to get very real. In the days leading up to the wedding, there was a lot of buzz around the family. People were chatting, speculating, and some were even placing bets on what might happen. My cousin Jessica swore she overheard Aunt Patricia crying on the phone about the truth finally coming out. My brother claimed he saw Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda having a heated argument in the hotel parking lot the night before the rehearsal dinner. I think we all sensed that something was off, but we had no idea what it was. My aunt was acting strange, constantly checking her phone and excusing herself from conversations. My uncle was being his usual stubborn self, but there was an edge to his demeanor that seemed different. And my mom was just excited to see everyone together, oblivious to the undercurrent of tension that was building like storm clouds on the horizon. The rehearsal dinner had its own share of awkward moments. Marcus's best man gave a speech that was a little too revealing about their college days, causing Sarah's conservative parents to shift uncomfortably in their seats. My grandmother made a comment about how, in her day, people didn't spend so much money on weddings, which didn't sit well with Sarah's mother, who had clearly spared no expense. But we all laughed it off, toasted the happy couple, and tried to maintain the festive atmosphere. As the big day approached, the anticipation grew. The morning of the wedding was chaotic in the best possible way. The bridesmaids were getting ready in one suite, mimosas flowing and music playing. The groomsmen were in another, attempting to tie bow ties and making jokes to calm Marcus's obvious nerves. I remember helping my younger cousin with her flower girl duties, making sure her basket was filled with rose petals and her dress was perfectly pressed. We were all wondering what the future held for the happy couple. Would they have a long and happy marriage? Would they face challenges along the way? Marcus and Sarah seemed so in love, so perfectly matched. But amidst all these thoughts, there was this nagging feeling that something was about to go down. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Sarah looked absolutely radiant in her wedding gown, a stunning ivory dress with delicate lace sleeves. Marcus couldn't hold back tears as she walked down the aisle. The vows were personal and heartfelt, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Even Uncle Robert seemed moved, though he'd never admit it. The sun streamed through the stained glass windows of the chapel, casting colorful patterns across the pews. It was everything a wedding should be: romantic, touching, and full of promise. The reception started off wonderfully. The ballroom had been transformed into a magical space with twinkling lights, elegant centerpieces, and a dance floor that seemed to call everyone to celebrate. The cocktail hour featured an impressive spread of appetizers, and people mingled, catching up with relatives they hadn't seen in years. My father cornered me to tell the same story he always tells at family gatherings about the time he accidentally set the kitchen on fire trying to deep fry a turkey. My mother was already on the dance floor, showing off moves that made us all lovingly cringe. Dinner was served promptly at 7, and the meal was exquisite. The speeches began shortly after, starting with the maid of honor, Sarah's sister Emily, who told sweet stories about their childhood and how she always knew Marcus was the one for Sarah. The best man followed with a slightly more raucous but ultimately touching tribute to Marcus. Everyone laughed in the right places and applauded enthusiastically. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment below telling me about your own family drama. Have you ever witnessed something shocking at a wedding? I want to hear all about it. And then it happened. The moment of truth came during the reception, right after the first dance. Marcus and Sarah had just finished their choreographed routine to At Last by Etta James, and everyone was applauding. The DJ was about to announce the father-daughter dance when my aunt, Patricia, Marcus's mother, stood up abruptly. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor, causing several heads to turn. She walked deliberately to the microphone, her face pale but determined. "I need to say something," she announced, her voice trembling slightly but audible through the sound system. The room fell silent. This wasn't on the program. My uncle, Marcus's father, stood up immediately. "Patricia, don't," he started, but she held up her hand. "No, David. It's time. I can't keep this secret anymore, not on a day like this, not when it affects everything." You could feel the collective intake of breath from every guest in that ballroom. Sarah's parents exchanged confused glances. My grandmother clutched her pearls. Marcus looked at his mother with a mixture of confusion and growing dread. "Marcus," Aunt Patricia continued, tears now streaming down her face, "there's something you need to know. Something we should have told you a long time ago." She paused, struggling to compose herself. "David isn't your biological father." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Someone gasped audibly. A glass shattered somewhere in the back of the room. Marcus stood frozen, his face cycling through emotions so quickly it was hard to track. Confusion, disbelief, shock, anger. But Aunt Patricia wasn't finished. "Your biological father is—" She turned to look directly at Uncle Robert, my father's brother, who had gone completely white. "Robert is your biological father. We had an affair 30 years ago, and when I found out I was pregnant, we made a choice. David agreed to raise you as his own, and we've kept this secret all these years." The room exploded, not with sound, but with the kind of shocked silence that's somehow louder than screaming. The reactions were priceless, in the most horrible way imaginable. Some people were stunned, frozen like statues with their forks halfway to their mouths. Others were angry. I could see Aunt Linda, Uncle Robert's wife, turning beet red, her hands gripping the tablecloth so hard her knuckles were white. A few people were even crying, including my mother, who had clearly known nothing about this. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. The music had stopped automatically when Aunt Patricia took the microphone, and it was like time stood still. The beautiful wedding celebration, with its twinkling lights and elegant decorations, suddenly felt like a stage for a tragedy. Marcus and Sarah looked at each other, unsure of what to do next. Sarah reached for Marcus's hand, but he pulled away, not from her, but from everything, taking several steps backward as if he could physically distance himself from what he'd just heard. Uncle Robert stood up, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Patricia, we agreed. We agreed to live a lie," she shot back, her voice cracking. "And I'm done. I'm done lying to my son. I'm done pretending. I'm done carrying this weight." Aunt Linda suddenly lurched to her feet, her chair toppling backward. "How dare you!" she screamed at Patricia. "How dare you ruin this wedding? Ruin my marriage? Ruin everything?" She turned to Uncle Robert, her face twisted with hurt and rage. "And you? You let me stand there at their engagement party, at the rehearsal dinner, knowing this whole time?" David, the man who'd raised Marcus as his own son, remained seated, his head in his hands. He looked broken, and in that moment, I realized that this revelation wasn't just about Marcus. It was about him, too. He'd loved Marcus as his son for 30 years, and now that relationship was being questioned in front of everyone. Marcus finally found his voice. "Get out," he said quietly, looking at his mother. Then louder, "Get out! All of you! This is my wedding day, and you've—" His voice broke. "You've destroyed it." Sarah was at his side immediately, wrapping her arms around him as he began to shake with suppressed emotion. Her parents rushed over, trying to shield the couple from the chaos erupting around them. My grandmother stood up, her voice cutting through the commotion with surprising authority. Everyone, please, let's take a moment. This is still Marcus and Sarah's day. But it was too late. The damage was done. Aunt Patricia was sobbing. Uncle Robert was trying to approach Marcus, who turned away from him. Aunt Linda had stormed out, and several other family members were following her. The wedding guests who weren't related to us sat in stunned silence, probably regretting their RSVP. I caught my father's eye across the room. He looked devastated. His brother had betrayed him in the worst possible way, had a child with his sister-in-law, and everyone had known except those of us on the periphery. How many family gatherings had we attended where everyone was living this lie? The next hour was a blur. Some family members left immediately. Others stayed, not sure what else to do. The catering staff, bless them, continued to work professionally despite the drama. The DJ packed up quietly. Marcus and Sarah disappeared into a side room with her parents, and we could hear muffled crying through the door. I found myself sitting with my brother and cousin Jessica, all of us too shocked to speak for a while. Finally, Jessica whispered, "Did you have any idea?" We both shook our heads. But then I remembered little things. The way Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert never seemed to be in the same room at family gatherings. How Uncle David sometimes looked sad when he watched Marcus. Comments my mother had made over the years that now made sense in this new context. Eventually, Marcus and Sarah emerged. Marcus's eyes were red, but he held Sarah's hand tightly. They walked to the microphone together, and Sarah spoke first. "We want to thank everyone who came here today to celebrate with us. This isn't how we imagined our wedding would go, but we're still married and we're still in love." Her voice was steady and strong. Marcus took the microphone, his voice hoarse. "I need time to process this, to figure out what this means for my relationships with my family. But right now, I just want to dance with my wife." And that's what they did. The DJ, who had stayed, put on another song, and Marcus and Sarah danced alone in the middle of that huge ballroom while the remaining guests watched. It was simultaneously the saddest and most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Some couples might have let this destroy their wedding day entirely, but they chose to reclaim it, even if just for one dance. Slowly, a few other couples joined them on the dance floor. My parents danced together, my mother crying quietly on my father's shoulder. My grandmother danced with my brother, of all people. It wasn't the celebration we'd planned, but it was something. A family trying to hold together even as it was falling apart. The secret had a profound impact on our family relationships. It changed the way we interact with each other, the way we communicate. In the weeks that followed, there were many difficult conversations. Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda separated, though they're trying to work through it in counseling. Marcus eventually agreed to sit down with Uncle Robert, though he still calls David Dad and says that won't change. Biology doesn't erase 30 years of love and parenting. Aunt Patricia has been in therapy, dealing with the guilt of keeping this secret for so long and the way she chose to reveal it. She's admitted that she panicked, that seeing Marcus so happy triggered something in her, a desperate need to be honest before it was too late. She's apologized repeatedly, though the damage is done. The family dynamics shifted in unexpected ways. Some relationships were strengthened. My parents grew closer, united in their shock and determination to support whoever needed them. My grandmother became a mediator, surprisingly good at it, helping different family members communicate when they were ready. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming, not even me, until months later when the truth finally emerged. 6 months after the wedding, Sarah announced she was pregnant. The family was thrilled, a much-needed piece of good news after all the drama. At the baby shower, my grandmother pulled me aside, a strange look on her face. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. "Something I only discovered recently, and I think you should know because you're good at keeping the family together." She led me to a quiet corner and handed me an old envelope. Inside were letters, dated from 35 years ago. As I read them, my hands began to shake. The letters were between my grandmother and Uncle David, Marcus's supposed non-biological father. They were love letters. Intimate, passionate letters that revealed a truth even more shocking than what Aunt Patricia had revealed at the wedding. David wasn't just the man who agreed to raise Marcus as his own. According to these letters and the DNA test results my grandmother had secretly kept all these years, David actually was Marcus's biological father, The affair between Patricia and Robert had happened, yes, but Patricia had also been with David during that same period. When she got pregnant, she assumed it was Robert's because of the timeline and the guilt she carried. But David had secretly done a DNA test years ago, discovering the truth but never telling anyone because he didn't want to complicate things further. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked my grandmother, stunned. "Because David is dying," she said softly. "Cancer. He has maybe 6 months, and he wants Marcus to know the truth before he goes. But he's afraid. Afraid that Marcus will think this is another lie, another manipulation. After what happened at the wedding, he doesn't know how to tell him." I sat with this information for weeks, wrestling with whether to get involved. Finally, I called Marcus. We met for coffee, and I brought the letters and the DNA results. When Marcus read everything, he started laughing. Not happy laughter, but the kind that comes when reality is so absurd you can't process it any other way. "So, let me get this straight," he said, wiping tears from his eyes. "My mother had an affair with Uncle Robert, got pregnant, assumed I was his child, told everyone at my wedding in the most dramatic way possible, put the entire family through hell, and it turns out Dad is actually my biological father after all." "That's exactly what happened," I confirmed. Marcus was silent for a long time. Then he stood up. "I need to see Dad. Now." The reunion between Marcus and David was emotional in a way I can't fully describe. David apologized for keeping the DNA results secret, explaining that he'd done the test out of hope, not suspicion, and when it came back positive, he was so relieved but also terrified that revealing the truth would make everything worse. Marcus forgave him, and they cried together for hours. When the truth came out to the rest of the family, the reactions were mixed. Aunt Patricia was mortified, her dramatic revelation at the wedding having been based on a false assumption. Uncle Robert felt relieved in a way. He'd been trying to build a relationship with Marcus out of obligation, but it had felt forced and painful. Now he could step back without guilt. Aunt Linda, surprisingly, was the most gracious about the whole thing. "I'm just glad," she said at a family dinner months later, "that we can all stop living in this weird limbo. The truth, even when it's complicated, is better than lies." Marcus and Sarah's baby, a beautiful girl they named Grace, was born healthy and perfect. At her baptism, David held her with tears in his eyes, a grandfather who'd almost missed this moment. Uncle Robert was there too, no longer carrying the weight of a secret paternity, just an uncle among many. The wedding celebration was still going on in its way, but it was definitely not the same. The mood had shifted, and we all had a lot to process. But ultimately, this crazy journey brought our family closer in unexpected ways. We learned that secrets have a way of coming out, that assumptions can be wrong, and that love and family are more complicated than biology. Looking back now, 3 years later, we joke about it sometimes. "Remember Marcus's wedding?" someone will say, and we'll all laugh. A real laugh now, not the bitter kind. Marcus and Sarah are happy. Their daughter is thriving, and David got to spend his final months knowing he was truly Marcus's father in every way possible. If you've got a crazy family secret or a similar story, I'd love to hear it. Share your experiences in the comments below. And if you're looking for more intriguing stories about family drama, unexpected twists, and the complicated nature of truth, be sure to check out my other videos. Remember, your family might seem crazy now, but sometimes the craziest stories have the most beautiful endings. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories that prove truth is stranger than fiction. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride, and I'll catch you in the next one.